So during this retreat, many of us have been focusing on the practice of Tara, who is a fully enlightened Buddha in female form. And she has all the qualities of a Buddha. And her main role is to help us develop those qualities, such as wisdom, compassion, love, bodhicitta, and so forth. But it's also said that she is the embodiment of the enlightened activities of all the Buddhas and is ready to help us with any problems or needs that we might have. And there's lots of stories that illustrate this. Many of these stories come from long ago in another part of the world, and they deal with things like Tara rescuing people from mad elephants and ferocious lions and so forth. And I thought to share a few stories from my own experience of how Tara can help us with different kinds of problems. It might be a little more contemporary and relevant to our part of the world. So the first time I relied on Tara was in 1973. I had recently arrived in Dharamsala and was going to classes at the Tibetan library and just soaking up as much Dharma as I could. And at that point in time, there were relatively small number of Western people in Dharamsala, maybe between 30, 40. They were kind of spread out in different places, so I can't really be sure how many there were, but not that many. And I got to know one woman from England. I'll call her Mary just for the sake of ease. So we had a few chats together, and one day she told me that she was going to do a retreat. She was going to go up to Tushita Retreat Center and do a retreat. And I thought, wow, that sounds cool. I certainly wasn't ready for that, but I can't remember how long she was in retreat, maybe just a few days or a week or 10 days or so. And when she reappeared, she was clearly imbalanced. You could see it just in her eyes. Her eyes were like, and then things that she would do, things that she would say were just not her normal self. And I had been very inspired by the Bodhisattva idea, and I felt, oh, I have to help all sentient beings, and this person is my friend, so I have to help her. So whenever I met her, I would try to talk to her and get her to kind of calm down, get down to earth. But it was quite challenging, as you probably know. When people are in that situation, yeah, it's difficult to talk to them. So one night I was in my room. I was renting a room near the library, and there was a knock on the door, and I opened it, and there was a Tibetan man outside who I didn't know. But he said that this woman, Mary, was somewhere nearby outside of a house belonging to a Tibetan family, and she was throwing rocks at their house, and the people were quite frightened and disturbed and didn't know what to do, and they knew that I was her friend, so they thought I could come and help. So I went with this man, a little apprehensive, and there she was outside this house, and I could see the people kind of peering out the curtains, and I'm sure they were really frightened because she's quite a big person. She's several inches taller than me and large this way as well. So it was probably quite frightening for them. So I managed to get her to sit down and have a conversation. And at first she calmed down and we were able to, have a conversation. I was trying to talk her out of this behavior that she was doing. And then it seemed to be working. And then suddenly she snapped and she picked up a really big rock and threatened to throw it at me. And I'm not very courageous, so I wasn't prepared to have a rock thrown at me. So I ran away and went back to my room. But I was so worried. It was like bedtime, but I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking about her being in that state of mind out there in the dark all alone and worrying about her and wondering what to do. And then I thought of Tara. When I went to classes at the Tibetan library. At the beginning of each class, we would do some prayers and mantras. And one of the mantras was Tara. So I'd already learned the mantra of Tara. And I had heard that Tara helps you with all kinds of things. So I thought, Tara, maybe Tara can help. So I had a little picture of Tara that I put up on a shelf, and I lit a candle in front of it. And then I sat on my bed and just started reciting Tara's mantra. That's all I knew at that point in time. But in my mind, I was praying to Tara very specific things. I was saying, please help Mary to calm down, stop throwing rocks, and to come here, to come to me, to my room, and then I can take care of her. So this is what I was asking in my mind. And I don't know how long I was sitting there doing that. It was quite a while. And then I heard this noise outside my door. And I opened the door, and there she was. And she still looked kind of spaced out, but at least she was in a calm mode of being rather than a rock-throwing mode of being. And so I brought her in, and we had a cup of tea, and then went to bed. So I thought, wow, this really works. Exactly what I asked for happened. So that gave me some confidence in Tara. And then over the years, I've relied on Tara for other things as well. Nothing quite as dramatic as that, but definitely, it does help. And I've also recommended other people to do the practice of Tara, and they've had some success as well. One time I was leading a retreat, and a woman attending this retreat, she was a really new student, first time meditating. She was having really terrible nightmares and waking up screaming. And she felt really bad about that because it was a dormitory situation. So when she woke up screaming, everybody else woke up too. And I remember in the prayer of Tara, it mentioned, that's one of the things mentioned about nightmares. So she'd never heard of Tara. So I taught her the mantra. I gave her pictures. Somebody found a mala. So she started saying Tara mantra before going to bed. And just like that, the nightmares stopped. And the interesting thing is, she told me that the reason she was having the nightmares was because of some medication that she was taking for her heart. And the doctors had told her that this medication could cause nightmares. So she was continuing to take the medication, but not having the nightmares anymore. So I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then there was a woman in Singapore, I think I've told this story before, who really, really wanted to have a baby. And she and her husband tried for 10 years every possible thing that they could do to get a baby, but nothing worked. And then she heard about Tara. Somebody told her, because that's also in the prayer, those who want a child. So she started praying to Tara, and after a couple of months, got pregnant. And it seemed like a miracle. So she gave birth to this really beautiful little girl. And then a woman that I've known for many years, really lovely, beautiful woman, very kind and sweet. And she wanted very much to have a partner and a family, but she just never met the right person. So I was talking to her one day, and she was asking, what can I do? And I said, well, how about Tara? She helps with everything else. Maybe she could help you. So she did. She started praying to Tara. And just not long ago, I wrote to her and asked her, what was the outcome of that? And she said, she prayed very hard to Tara, and my prayers were answered, and I found a loving, fulfilling relationship. My husband supports my Dharma practice and service within the FPMT and its projects. And that's really fortunate, because it sometimes happens that when people get into Dharma, their partner isn't into Dharma and can be very unsupportive and even kind of negative and resentful. So it's quite special to have such a partner. So those stories are all of women. You might wonder, well, what about men? Do they rely on Tara? They do. For example, in the monasteries, at least in the Gelugpa tradition, the monks recite the praises to Tara every day to help them with their studies. So it's a practice to clear away obstacles to study. And I've been reading the book Big Love, which is the biography of Lama Yeshe, really wonderful book. And when he was escaping from Tibet, he had been in Sera Monastery, and then the Chinese started bombing. And he said they were just so confused. They didn't know what to do, where to go. But he and some of his friends just ran away. And they first went to his home village and tried to decide what to do next. And they decided they'll try to go to India. And they consulted a lama in the village about if that was a good idea and if there's anything they could do to clear away obstacles. And the lama said, yes, it's good to go to India, and advised them to recite the 21 praises 500 times. And they did. And they were successful. It was a dangerous journey. They faced lots of hardships and difficulties and dangers, but they made it safely to India. Not everybody did. Some people died along the way. So those are some stories about how relying on Tara can be very helpful. So we're coming to the end of the retreat, and I think it's good to keep a connection with Tara even after the retreat. Here in the Abbey, it's easy to do because every morning before breakfast, we recite the praises, 21 praises, and also we do a monthly puja of Tara. And so I think some people have their own personal practice of Tara that they do every day. For those who are not here, try to find some way of keeping up that connection. It doesn't need to be a long period of time, even just a few minutes. Take a few minutes out of your day and think of Tara, visualize her, or at least have a picture of Tara, look at her, think of her qualities, take refuge in her, recite some mantras. So that just takes a few minutes, but it's a way of keeping up that connection. And it's good to keep that connection because then when you do find yourself in need, whether it's something practical, like, fixing a flat tire or success in something that you're trying to do, or if it's something more emotional, more spiritual, like if you're feeling depressed or confused, lonely, whatever, just to know that Tara is always there. And like a mother, that's how I like to think of Tara, as like a mother, because mothers are just so attentive to their children, always there, always ready to help them with whatever they need. I feel Tara has that kind of energy. She's always there. We just need to think of her, ask for her help, and she'll be there. And not everybody may feel a connection with Tara, but you may find a connection with some other Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, Manjushri, Chenrezig. There's many, many different Buddhas. So try to find at least one Buddha figure that you do feel a connection with. And all the Buddhas are basically the same. They're all manifestations of enlightened mind, having all the qualities of enlightenment, just different forms to help different kinds of beings to be free of their suffering and find genuine happiness all the way up to enlightenment. So really have confidence that the Buddhas are there and ready to help us. We just have to think of them and call on them and turn to them for help. They'll be happy to help.